Hello. I am going to interview Sylvia Contreras, soon to be Director Emeritus or former Director
right?
of the Oscar Runabout Library here at Edgewood College. So, Sylvia, we'll have some questions for you. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Compton, California. Was born and raised in Compton, and went to school there all my life. I moved away when I was 30, and I went to Iowa, the University of Iowa for graduate school.
Okay. Library school, right?
Yes, library school.
Okay. What was your family like?
My family was a mixed up group of people. We were, my grandparents came over from Mexico, and they came over from Chihuahua, which is not the dog. There's an actual state in the city of Mexico that is named Chihuahua, and they migrated over here as migrant farm workers. And my grandfather was a blacksmith, so he did some work for the railroads and for blacksmith stuff, like for farms and stuff.
Okay.
And they had all their children here in the United States, except for the eldest one. And my parents were first generation American here, so yeah.
Okay. Was your family more of a nuclear family or was it an extended family?
My family was more extended. I mean,
okay.
My aunts and uncles, they were like my fathers and
Right.
mothers, and we didn't have, there wasn't a boundary line of who told you what to do.
You still did it?
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, well, what did your parents do for a living?
My mother was a bookbinder. She did
For real?
bookbinding, yes, and she did it for like the airline, the people who made airplanes, Boeing, Northrop.
Yeah.
There were old groups like that, and she worked in the bookbinding department there until she got married, and then she was a housewife.
Okay. What schools did you go to?
I went to, let's see, I went to Jefferson Elementary in Compton, California. I went to Ralph Bunch Junior High School, and then I went to Dominguez High School in Compton. These were all Compton schools. And then I went to Compton Community College for 2 years before I graduated before I transferred over to Long Beach State University, and I graduated from there.
Okay.
With a bachelor's degree in English literature.
English. Okay, speaking of books and whatnot, what were your intellectual interests when you were a youngster? And that could be like teenager or young adulthood,
Okay.
but when you were young, who formed your thought?
I have always sewed clothes for my Barbies. So that was when I was little. I remember doing that, and I would make their bedrooms out of leftover paint from my family's house. So and I would make curtains, and I put it in a box, and that would be their bedroom and stuff. So as a kid, I was very creative, and I was very Susie Homemaker. But I always read, and I remember the biggest issue with my family was who's going to give Sylvia money for the Scholastic Book Fair. And so I always read, and I got to know my local librarian very well.
Okay.
And at the public library, at Willowbrook Public Library in Compton. And Mrs. Hopkins was one of my mentors, but she also taught me, gave me books to read. So one of the funny stories I always tell is that my brother was mad because I was reading Stephen King, and so I had to go to Miss Hopkins and say I can't read Stephen King anymore. And so she gave me Edgar Allan Poe, she gave me Frankenstein and Dracula to read when I was about 12 or 13.
Okay.
And that's how I got introduced to literature and stuff, because she knew that I liked the supernatural, gory kind of mystery kind of books, and so she gave me the literature that was like that. And later she hired me as a library page and kept me out of trouble on the mean streets of Compton.
Oh, funny. So she was your library mentor, right?
She was my library mentor. I was more afraid of Mrs. Hopkins than I was afraid of anyone in my family. So my grandmother would threaten me with, I'm going to call Mrs. Hopkins. And I would just sit up straight and do whatever they told me to do because I was afraid of Mrs. Hopkins.
Was she a native Californian?
She was from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
And she looked like Lena Horne.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Was she,
she was
African American.
Uh-huh.
Part of that diaspora that came to California in the 20th century?
Yes. Her husband was from California, and she was from
Oh, wow. How interesting.
And she lived in, right next door is, about 2 blocks away from where I grew up, Los Angeles started. And so she grew up in Los Angeles, but she worked in Compton.
Oh.
And she was an amazing woman. But like I said, I was afraid of her. She shooed away boys. She made me read. She made me learn. She made me write reports. I had to go to board meetings with her. And
wow.
So I think I became a librarian because of Mrs. Hopkins. So.
Oh my God, what a great story. Huh. Before you came to Edgewood, what were you doing?
I was a librarian at UW-Madison, Wisconsin, in the Health Sciences Department, and then I also worked in Texas at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. But I started my library career in the public library, and then I went into the academic arena.
Okay. What was Edgewood like when you got here?
Heaven. I had just come out of a 5-year project at the UW of building one health sciences library and merging 3 of the smaller libraries into this one library. So I was ready to leave that and the people and everything, and I literally one day I went home and I logged into the Chronicle of Higher Education, and I saw this job opening and I applied, and it was like sent from above because I wanted to stay in Madison at that time, and it was the perfect place for me to come. So when I got here, there were more sisters here. There were at least 6 sisters still working here, and the Dominican values just equaled the values that I had in my life. And with the exception of justice, because that's the one that I had to learn what it meant here. Because growing up in Compton, I didn't believe in justice. Or social justice, anyway.
How's that?
I think that, growing up in an environment where you've seen police beating kids or police abusing their power, or, you've been poor and you've been raised in environments that are more city poor people and country poor people, I think, are 2 different animals. And so growing up in an environment where violence was and robbery and crime were everyday occurrences, you kind of have a skewed view of what justice looks like.
Okay.
And also, you don't call the police because the police are just as bad. Or you don't, you avoid having to go to court because the court system is skewed to the dominant culture, things like that.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's what I learned when I got to Edgewood, that there's a larger meaning to social justice.
Oh,
so.
Wonderful. Do you have any good Edgewood stories you'd like to share?
Edgewood stories. I think my funniest, oh gosh, I have lots of Edgewood stories, but where do I start? Well, I just found out one of my Edgewood stories isn't a real Edgewood story, so I can't even talk about that one. But, when I walked into this library...
That's a teaser.
I know, well, let's just say it, okay? Because let's get it out there. I don't know how I passed on this misinformation and how it got to me, but when I walked into this library, it was beautiful. You could see the lake, you could see the woods, everything. But there were tall shelves, and sometimes you had to go further in to see that. And when I got here, I got rid of those shelves because I wanted people to walk in and just immediately be wowed. And somewhere along the way, I heard the story of Dr. Eben taking the architects and putting them in long chairs and saying, "This is what I want the students to see." well, poor Dr. Evans has been listening to me tell that story for years now, and it's not even true. So I'm like, who told me that? Because I just didn't make it up.
Oh,
so,
funny.
So those are the kinds of things that I think that's my funniest story about Edgewood. But it's a really nice story, and how cool would it have been to be true, that kind of thing. But I think for me, the real the community that we have here at Edgewood has been probably the best story that I could tell, because I came in here and I was disenchanted with the library profession, or I wouldn't or with people, and the people here at Edgewood just welcomed me and embraced me, and I think that's the real story of Edgewood, is the community and how people feel when they work here, and everyone has a voice, and everyone is heard. But that, what's the story that they always say with the Dominicans? If you speak to one Dominican, you've spoken to one Dominican, or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's the thing. Everybody listens to you, but that doesn't mean that they're going to implement what you said or anything like that. So I think those are the fun stories.
Okay. So what are you currently doing, or about to do?
I am currently leaving this wonderful, glorious place to assume the position of university librarian at Holy Names University in Oakland, California. It's a smaller institution. It's probably half the size of Edgewood, and I am looking forward to my next adventure and to seeing how I can shake up the library and the campus, and then getting home to the sunshine, because it has been too cold in Wisconsin for me.
Okay.
And these last few years. So.
Okay. What is your vision for the Edgewood College of the future?
The Edgewood College of the future. I hope that one of my hopes is that through some of these digital videos that we will retain some of the tradition and the history of the college. I think that's very important to me as the sisters leave, and as those of us that have been here the longest leave. This college is great because of the values that we have. We have trust. Truth. We don't have trust. Truth, compassion, partnership, and justice, and the other P word, or the other C word. But anyway, these values that I can never all name at one time when I'm on the spot, are what make Edgewood great. And I think I want to see that continue. I want to see it continue grow, but I want the students to leave here with the same feelings that the previous students and the alumni have left with, is knowing that they have made a difference, or that they have become a different person at Edgewood.
Huh. Speaking of the 5 core values, which one speaks to you the most?
I think community.
Okay. Community
speaks to me the most. There's a saying in my family that Sylvia talks too much, and my mom used to play this song saying, "You talk too much, you worry me to death," or something like that. But there's also the saying that Sylvia will talk to a telephone pole.
Oh.
And I think community speaks to that. How do we speak? How do we communicate to each other? How do we live amongst each other? And for me, it's through conversations. It's through getting to know people. And it's through being able to disagree and to agree, and all that glorious stuff that comes with community. I think that's probably my favorite part of Edgewood.
Lastly, what wisdom would you like to impart?
Give more money to the library. What wisdom do I want to impart? I think that I want people to know that Edgewood is a beautiful place to grow and to be and to become whatever it is that your passion or that life calling has for you. Mm-hmm. So I think my words of wisdom is to take the time, for the students actually, is to take the time to discover who you are through Edgewood's courses, through the people through the community you meet, mm-hmm. and and learn what you want to become, because so many of us have fallen into different jobs that we might not have, that might not be our passion. And so don't do that. Be passionate about your work. Be passionate about the community, that you live in, the community that you work with. Be passionate, and I think that's one of the things that I'm taking from Edgewood.
Huh. Okay. Well, I thank you for your time, and I wish you good luck in California.
Well, thank you so much. Go Sunshine.
Okay, here we go.